Hello gorgeous people, how are you all doing today? I hope you are well. I hope you are somewhere where you can get a bit of coolness. I've had a little bit of a feeling of something, not quite sure what, so I'm having a bit of lemon, I couldn't think what it was, lemon and hot water. I don't have any honey at the moment. I normally like to have it with honey, but never mind. Zing. Yes, all's well. Little catch up. Firstly, I want to say a big thank you to Miss N, who, when was it? I mentioned about, I think I hadn't received my new PC at that point, but I'd ordered it, and I was saying how it only takes micro cards, but my video camera, my stills camera, they all take the standard size cards. And she said, well, I'm having a clear out and I've got some to get rid of, would you like them? So I said, yes, please. It's just another great example, isn't it? Thank you, lovely. It's like with those lovely curtains, you have a clear out, where do you get rid of stuff like this? I don't know. I mean, maybe there are charities which take them and then they can be used for, I don't know, you know, kids in families where there's not much money and they need something like this for homework. I don't know. Anyway, I'm glad to be the charity on this occasion. So a couple of them are quite small gigabytes. Listen to me sounding like I know what I'm talking about. They're quite small in terms of, not size, they're small size, but capacity, you know. So they will be great for my stills camera, because although this video camera, I can take photographs on it, and I have been doing a few on it for the last couple of weeks, photographing stuff for the shop, for my shop. I haven't worked out yet how to size them on this video camera. I can do it on the computer, plus it's not so good at close-up as my stills camera. And my stills camera is really tiny, so there are occasions when I'm out that actually I prefer just to have my stills camera with me and not the video camera. So Miss N, you know who you are, thank you so much. One of those cards is going straight into my stills camera. Plus there's a couple of the adapters, spare adapters, and that's great because then I'd like to buy another card, micro card for the video camera, just so I've got a spare, so that I've always got that backup. But when I buy that, I can buy just the micro card. I don't need to buy it with an adapter, so it'll save me a few quid. So thank you, lovely, you've saved me a few quid. And we've saved a bit of landfill between us, haven't we? I really appreciate it, thank you. And talking of, I don't know if this is going to bother me today. Yeah, stuff not going to landfill. As mentioned, I don't know how many videos back now, I've engaged a solicitor at this stage for sorting out a new will. Great, and all the other clobber with it, and then eventually for doing the house sale, you know, the official bit of the house sale. So I've been backwards and forwards a couple of times, and it's in a different village to me. So on one of my trips over there, I went and toured all their charity shops. They seem, for the most part, theirs seem quite a bit cheaper than ours over here, apart from one. One of them, I went in and I was scanning the books and I thought, oh, that's great, that's it, oh, well, that'd be great for my shop. They were charging more in the charity shop than I charge in my shop. So, that, you know, there'll be no profit in it for me. They were actually charging, the handful I looked at, I was looking at, there was one on, oh, it doesn't matter what the subjects were. Say the cover price would be £11.99, 12 quid cover price. Now, in most charity shops, or certainly the ones around me, that's going to be about £3 or £4 around here. They had like £8, £8.50. It's like, it's crazy. I always say I want charity shops to make money, of course I do, but you know, historically there's been a sort of a quid pro quo with charity shops, in that those of us on low incomes, or you know, for folk on benefits, for folk on pensions, really small fixed incomes, rely on charity shops because they can't afford new shops. But it's getting to the stage where charity shops are almost as expensive as new. Anyway, never mind that one. There were some other cheap ones, and one of them had a £1 rail. Yay! I haven't seen a pound rail for so long, of clothing. And I found a perfect thing. Well, it's not quite perfect. It needs some repairs. I've been low on summer tops for ages. So although for my birthday I was given these lovely dresses, a couple of girlfriends, I don't really have much by way of summer tops. In fact, I think I've probably got maybe 2 that are, yes, I'm happy with those, and another one that's sort of serviceable, but it's on its last legs. It's not great. Anyway, so I've been aware of that for ages. Now, whilst I'm not doing, hold on, I want my found somewhere handy, I'll prop it on my books. Whilst I'm not doing any gardening at the moment, wearing dresses is fine. I don't need a top because I'm not wearing leggings, because I'm not being rough and tumble. But once I start gardening again, I'm going to need some tops. I mean, actually, talking of that, I would like to get to a point in my next garden where I can garden in a frock. I'll be a lady gardener. I'd love to garden in a frock. But when you're doing, well, historically for me, with allotment gardening, there's a lot of, you know, it's a lot of grunt work and carting your wheelbarrow around, and, you know, it's quite physical. So that's why I've always worn leggings. It's just comfortable. There's no chance I'm ever going to flash my knickers if I fall over. Anyway, so I needed another summer top. Get to it. This bit of gorgeousness. So it's linen. Now, I put it on briefly the other day. What was I doing? Oh, that's it. I'd done the hall stairs. And it was a really humid day, so I took all my clothes off and just slipped this one on for the end of the video. But I like it because, I don't know if you can make out, there's a little tiny bit of smocking here, like I say, and then this little detail at the bottom. Linen, gorgeous, gorgeous linen. So it's a nice big baggy top, so air circulation underneath. £1. I thought, that's brilliant, that's amazing, fantastic. I'll have that. Got it home and then found out it was damaged. I'll repair it. So this is the sleeve, and lighting's a bit funny today, isn't it? Anyway, this is the end of the sleeve, and I just thought, am I actually on record mode or am I on photograph mode from doing photographs the other day? I think I better stop and check that I'm in the right mode. Hang on a tick. Phew. Yeah, I was pretty sure I'd turned it back to video mode when I finished photographing the other day, but just double check, I was. Anyway, yeah, so you can see where there's like a little cuff. So there's more fabric in the sleeve than in the cuff. It's a slight gather. So I think what someone's done is they found that a bit too tight and they've simply ripped it open. And that's not even the seam that they've ripped. They've just literally ripped it open. I nearly ripped it some more. So it's going to need repairing. I think what I might do is I might take off this cuff band completely. What I'll do before I take the cuff band off completely, I'm going to pin it shut, try it back on. That does look that looks a bit that's all right if it's sitting on this part of your arm, which is where it's designed to sit. But when I'm working, especially if I'm working in the garden, I always roll my sleeves up. I want my sleeves out of the way. So maybe it's too narrow to roll up. So I'll try it on again, have a play around. So it might be that I take that cuff off completely and do without it, and then just re-hem it. and encapsulate this rip into the hem. Or the other thing I could do is, imagine opening this out completely flat. There's not enough fabric there to make a hem, but I could just bind it with a bit of ribbon, a little pretty ribbon. Anyway, I think for £1, a linen shirt, it's that, it doesn't really pick up on the camera, this lovely little bit of smocking, and then this pretty little, what is it, picot, what's it called? It's like cut thread work at the bottom. £1. Yes, I can manage £1. Oh my goodness, if only I could get all my clothes for £1. I mean, I do pretty well out of the charity shops, and you know, it's amazing how many times over the years it could do with it could I don't mind the sharpness of lemon, but could do anyway. Yeah, the number of times over the years and folk have said to me, love your top, where's it from? Charity. Great. Right. Oh my goodness, so I just wanted I've got loads of bits of paper again. Try to keep this video a bit short. I do try. Do you remember a few weeks ago we were talking about toys and games that we'd play outside? I loved the comments after that video, because so many folk were adding their memories too, and there are a couple of items I went, oh my goodness, I'd forgotten about those, because I was talking about the strap-on roller skates and clackers. So many of you had clackers, well gel, but there were a couple of things that people reminded me of, and then there was one other thing that I suddenly remembered that no one mentioned. And of course we all had the kind of, you know, the tennis ball in the end of a pair of tights, and you'd stand with your back to the wall, and we used to play this game where you kind of whack it above your head, whack it down to the left, whack it down to the right, above your head, between your legs, over your head, just whacking a tennis ball in the end of a pair of tights. But then the tights would shred pretty quickly. Loads of ball games against the wall, so 2 balls, showering them up against the wall, and you play with a partner, and there'd be a song, I can't remember any of the songs now, but as you were showering, then you showered the balls then to your partner, and they would, anyway, all of those things. But the couple of things that folk mentioned that made me go, oh my goodness, yes, how did I forget? There were 3 actually. And as soon as anyone mentioned them, boom, I visualised them completely straight away. The first, oh my God, we were easily pleased as kids, weren't we, in the, I guess we're talking the late 70s, so when, yeah, late 70s. I don't know what it was called, this toy. It was a blue plastic tube about that diameter. I seem to remember it being ridged, about 1 metre long, literally 1 metre long plastic tube like that. You held one end of it and then you whipped it around your head like that, swung it, and it made a kind of whistling, howling noise. Woo, 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 woo. That was it. That was the toy. A bit of blue plastic tube. I had one. I loved it. No idea what any of us called it. Did it ever have a name? Can't remember. Then, and again, I don't know what it was ever called, but picture a rigid plastic hoop about yay big. Attached to it is a plastic cord, string, and then on the end of that, a plastic ball that was a bit heavier. So the hoop bit you'd put over, say, your right foot, so it's sitting on your ankle, and then you'd swing your right leg to make this thing swing around, and then with the other leg you had to jump over the cord with the ball on the end of it. So again, it was a game to play on your own. But yeah, I had no idea what it was called. Did it actually have a name? And again, it was something that you could kind of fashion for yourself a bit cheaply, you know. If you get a hoop of some sort, again, you could tie an old pair of tights to it with a tennis ball in the end of the tight and get the same effect. But hours of fun. But oh my goodness, the one that got me, who mentioned it? I think it might have been Sarah mentioned it, and she called it Zip Zap, which I thought, okay, I'll go with that. I can't remember it having a name of any sort, but this is a game for 2 people. And I guess maybe about 3 or 4 meters long. 2 lengths of plastic cord, plastic rope. And at each end, so yeah, you've got 2 pieces running parallel, these 2 pieces of plastic cord running parallel. And on each end of each of them, like a little plastic D-ring, like handles. And over the top of it, a sort of a plastic, almost rugby ball shaped thing. So the idea was, if I'm standing here, you're on the other end, you're holding the D-rings now, and you're holding them shut. And me at my end, I've got my D-rings shut, and we've got the rugby ball, it's up at my end. And then I open my arms really quickly, and it will shoot the ball down to you. And the idea is that before it hits you, you kind of whoop, open your D-rings, because I've now, after having opened my D-rings, I shut them again. And that's it, that was it. So I think Sarah called it zip zap. Great, because it did zip zap, zip zap, zip zap. Again, hours of fun. Now, I didn't have one of those, but a neighbour kid did, so I got to play with the neighbour kid. It did strike me how many of our toys in those days, apart from board games, but how many of our toys were quite physical, and they were toys to play outside with, which is great. That's why we were all so skinny when we were kids, just burning things off all the time. I mentioned that there was a toy that no one mentioned in comments, and I actually had one. I think it was secondhand, because I seem to remember the paint being a bit chipped on it. A pogo stick! I thought I was the bee's knees having a pogo stick. I don't remember any of the other kids on our estate having one. I was rubbish at it. I never got the hang of it. I so wanted to be a brilliant pogoer. I seem to remember on telly at the time, so again, this is late 70s, there was a kids show called Record Breakers. And I seem to remember there was a record for pogoing. And I can just in my head, I can sort of see the image of this guy on his pogo stick, and he could pogo up steps. I couldn't even pogo on the flat. Anyway, there we go. Playing out happy memories. And I think it might have been that programme that I'd caught a little bit of that prompted that kind of flood of toy memories. I caught another bit of another episode. I think it's on the My 5 hub. I can't remember what the programmes were called though. Darn it, because I'd like to watch them in full, because like I said, I've just seen little tiny bits of them. But anyway, there was another one, and it was to do with, it was more grown-up things. Shopping it might have been to do with. And there were 2 things which really stood out to me. One was, I mean, for ages we only had a black and white telly. When did we get our colour telly? I think I was about 12 or 13 when we got a colour telly. Yeah, I think I might have been 13, because I think that was the first summer that I saw Wimbledon with green grass. It was that epic Borg-McEnroe final, and Borg won. Yay! Because it was my 13th birthday, I wanted Borg to win. Anyway, yeah, so for ages we had a black and white TV, but it wasn't even our TV. We rented it. And that was absolutely the norm then. People did not buy TVs. These were big, expensive things. I mean, big, physically big. Do you remember how deep that... If I'm the front of the telly, the back of the telly would be on the wall. You know, great bulbous things out the back. Yeah, and... You know, we were a 1 TV household, as was every household, every other household I knew, so all my mates. There was only 1 telly in the house. It was in the living room. You watched TV as a family. Your parents chose what was going to be watched. If you didn't like it, you lumped it, you went and did something else in your room, but you certainly didn't have a telly in your room or any kind of, you know, watching device. But yeah, I was remembering that whole, the renting the telly thing, because every Saturday morning as part of the shopping routine, which obviously I ducked out of from the age of 14 because I had a Saturday job by then. So these are memories from sort of 11, 12, 13. But yeah, on a Saturday morning, going to the shops, doing all the different shops, but also calling in at Radio Rentals or whatever the jingle was. Yeah, we called in at the Radio Rentals shop. It was a shop full of tellies to rent. They might have done other things as well. I don't know if they did appliance rental. But anyway, yeah, we used to go in every Saturday morning and pay our however many quid it was to rent the telly for another week. And this just appealed to, I think, my nerdy side. One of the other things was, one of the shops we went to, it was like a supermarket. I don't know which brand or which branch of a supermarket, but anyway, so we go to the market first, and in the market get all the loose veg and all that kind of stuff, and then later on in the shops, this supermarket place, that's where we go for, I think it was like milk and yogurts, ooh, ski yogurts, oh, we're so middle class and aspirational and exotic. But anyway, that's not the point. The point was, you handed over your cash. There were no loyalty schemes in those days per se, but we got Green Shield stamps. I didn't care about the stamps. I think we ended up with a hairdryer. I think that's what my mum opted for. You save and you save, like years and years and years of saving up your stamps, and eventually you get a really cheap, crappy hairdryer. Anyway, I didn't care about any of that. What I cared about was sticking them in the book. Oh, because the pages were, it was like a little book, album almost, like a little stamp album. And it was divided into grids. And so if you'd not spent much money, you got a small Green Shield stamp, lick it, stick it. And I loved getting it absolutely straight within that grid. But if you'd spent quite a lot of money, you'd get a bigger stamp, and that would cover 4 squares of the grid, so you'd fill the page quicker. Anyway, I'm sure some of you will know what I'm talking about. When I was really little, yeah, I was, excuse me. Oh, sorry. Yeah, when I was really, really little, I was desperate to put the stamps in the book. Just like, please, can I put the stamps in? Please, please. And I wasn't allowed to. And it was so annoying because, like, I'm the neatest one in the entire family. I will put them in so accurately, so squarely. Please, please, give it a go, give it a go. Anyway. Eventually, I was entrusted with that task. Yeah, Green Shield stamps. Sticking them in the book. I wonder if, you know, now we all have these loyalty cards, don't we? We swipe our cards. I say, bring back stamps that I can stick into a book. I'd be more likely to be loyal to a shop if they gave me stamps as a reward. I'd love it having a stamp book again. I really needed to blow my nose. Also, I had my camera up right on the top of the tripod pointing down. Maybe that was the light issue. I don't know. Anyway, I'm back. I'm just going to sort of round off with a sort of a subject. Now, I'm just going to take the pace down a bit and have a little bit of chill time, because I've just read a book which I really enjoyed, and it's prompted all sorts of other stuff. So I'm not going to talk about the book too much per se. So if you're not into books, don't worry. I'm just going to show you what the book is. It's called The Little Book of Ikigai. Iki means life and gai means reason. It's like life life reason, life mission, raison d'etre, that sort of thing. So I bought the book for my shop, and then I thought, I was between books. I've hardly done any reading this summer. I've just been concentrating on the flat and other stuff. But I thought, oh, fancy, what can I thought, I know, I'll have a read of this. So anyway, I have read it, really enjoyed it. So now it can go in the shop, along with a couple of others that I found on Ikigai recently. So have an explore. I was thinking, you know, I picked it up and I thought, oh, this is a bit of an odd choice for you, Vivi, because Far Eastern culture is not something that I sort of really dip into. And I think in terms of, you know, over the years, in terms of travel, it's not somewhere that I ever had a yearning desire for travel. You know, when I left school and was going on to university, in those days, there was no such thing as a gap year. Sometimes, though, after uni, people would do a bit of travelling. But it was mostly in Europe. You know, we used to have the Interrail, the rail card that you could use all over Europe. You could buy it for a month. If I remember correctly, it was something like 125 quid for the month. So yeah, you know, in those, I'm talking now in the late 80s, early 90s. So my travel was always sort of Europe. I just didn't feel a connection with, say, culture of, say, Thailand or China. I didn't even particularly have a desire to go to India, which a lot of my friends find surprising. It's like, but you're a hippie and you're a vegetarian. Everyone who's a hippie and a vegetarian goes to India. I don't know, it just never really appealed to me. And now, you know, so many people, they have their gap year and it's like, oh, they're going to go to Thailand. They all start at Thailand and then they hop over and they go to Australia and then come back via Machu Picchu in South America. But yeah, so it never really appealed to me. And so I'd started reading the first couple of pages of the book and I was thinking that thought. Just a little top up of hot. I was thinking that thought about how, why have I picked this book up? I'm not really that interested in different Far Eastern cultures. And then I thought, well, actually, no, there are a few bits and bobs. So I put the book down for a minute and I started to think about Japan in particular. And I think in general, I think we all have that affinity for a culture that's not our own. And by the same token, there are other cultures which we just don't have any sort of feeling for. It's not that we're anti that culture at all. It's just that it doesn't sing to us. It's really hard to explain. Put it this way. If someone said to you, you can travel to 5 countries anywhere in the world, which 5 countries would you name and why? I'm not asking you to, but if I asked that of myself, yeah, I don't think China or Thailand would be on my list. Nepal might, but China and Thailand wouldn't. Would Japan? And until I was looking at this book and thinking about it, I would have thought, no. But then I did stop and think about it and I suddenly thought, actually, there's quite a lot of Japanese culture that over the years I've been really quite interested in. I haven't explored it too much, but I've been interested in. And one of the reasons, sorry, excuse me. One of the reasons I was a little bit disappointed on that day when I was going up to Notting Hill to sell my records, the idea was that after that, I was then going to go to Holland Park with my little picnic lunch, and I wanted to show you the Kyoto garden in Holland Park. It's beautiful. Japanese garden, gifted in 1990, 91, early 90s. Really beautiful Japanese gardens, water trickling, lots of little acers, maples, beautiful, quiet, a real quiet oasis. So if you're ever in Kensington, if you're on Kensington High Street, let's say you've visited Kensington Palace and Kensington Gardens, and then you've been on Kensington High Street shopping and it's all been noisy and you're feeling a bit exhausted. Actually, the garden at the back of the church in Kensington High Street, that's a highly recommended spot for a bit of peace and quiet and a sandwich. But if you can be bothered to, get yourself down to Holland Park. There's an entrance from the end of Kensington High Street. Get yourself into Holland Park, get yourself up to the Kyoto Garden, and you will immediately have peace and feel zen. So yeah, I was thinking about it. I was thinking about all the different things. So for example, the anime, Japanese anime, particularly Studio Ghibli, which, yeah, I absolutely love it. And do you remember I read that book in the new year about what's called The Cat Who Saved Books? And all the time I was reading it, I was seeing it as a Studio Ghibli production. Love it. Moss on Stones. I think of moss on stones and I think of those sort of Japanese Zen gardens. Not necessarily, I'm not really into the raked gravel, those true Zen gardens. But again, thinking of the Kyoto Garden in Holland Park, moss-covered stones, water, beautiful. I love that kind of garden. Ikebana. So Ikebana is the Japanese art of flower arranging. And what I find really interesting with Japanese design aesthetic is, and I can't remember the word for it, I apologise, I did know it at one time, in whether it's architecture or gardening, but it's particularly obvious in Ikebana, in flower arranging, is they design with the empty space. So the empty space becomes as much a part of the design as the thing that's in the space. So for example, an Ikebana flower arrangement will have 3 items, 3 stems. And if one stem is up here arching over and there's another stem down here arching just slightly here, this space between them is part of the design. So to get that space right, you have to move these objects so that actually what we're looking at is the empty space rather than the objects. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but that fascinates me and always has done. And I think traditional, you know, Japan in a way it's 2 cultures, isn't it? It's that kind of old traditional and then this ultra modern. And the ultra modern, I don't think I would like to visit Tokyo. These high rises, tiny apartments, everyone's really crammed into a small space. I know I live in London, but we don't have those massive high rises, and where we live in teeny tiny little pods, that's not for me. And all the bright lights and the tech, not for me. But the old traditional wooden buildings built without any screws and nails. Japanese joinery is amazing, so complex, has to withstand being shaken. There are temples, there are temples still standing hundreds and hundreds of years later that have withstood earthquakes because of that joinery. The simplicity of the interiors with their paper screens and their tatami mats and room sizes which are dictated by the size of a tatami mat. So is the room 3 tatami mats wide? Is it 1 tatami mat deep? So that's simplicity. Their tools, again I'm talking about like traditional, older fashioned. So my hori knife that I use in my garden, beautiful tool, and one of my best gifts ever. Thank you, Jackie. It's rarely out of my hand. It's beautifully made. It's beautiful to hold. Japanese saws. If you've never looked at Japanese saws, go online in a second and look at Japanese saws. It's all these things, and I think, and so in a way, reading about this is sort of, you know, living well. You know, we know that Japanese people, I don't know, actually maybe it's the older people, obviously I'm talking about older people, I'm talking about longevity. Maybe the younger people now won't live quite so long because their lives have changed so much. But historically, Japanese people have lived long lives. One of the longest lived cultures on this planet. And maybe a lot of that simplicity is maybe that's something to do with it. We know about diet and having, you know, a fish diet, rice diet, low diets that are low on saturated fats and processed carbohydrates and all that sort of thing. But maybe having beautiful tools that last a lifetime, so you're not stressing about having to buy new tools every 2 days, 2 years. That simplicity of the home where, and he talks about it in this book as well, even things like housework, making housework a meditation. I know, I hate housework as well, but being in the moment, breathing in the moment as you gently sweep with a handmade broom made of natural materials, so everything's natural. And yeah, it all, sorry, I'm going really hot. It all really, really appeals to me. And the more I thought about it, you know, forest bathing, Shirin-yoku, is it Shirin-yoku? I can't remember. Shirin-yoku, forest bathing. They've got some good ideas going on in Japan. The free diving women, are they diving for pearls? I'm not sure. But the free diving women still working into their 60s and 70s. The idea, I think, of health and well-being being to do with the outside, the simplicity of life, being in the moment. It's all really appealing, isn't it? I don't know, I was thinking maybe I can make my new home like a traditional Japanese home. No, it wouldn't work in the UK. But even the fact of the Shinto religion, and there's Buddhism and Zen Buddhism, there's a lot of crossover, but as I understand it, Shinto, in Shinto, I think it translates as something like 1 million gods. For them, there are gods in everything, different gods everywhere. So there are gods in waterfalls, gods in trees, gods in the earth, gods in buildings, gods in fabric. So everything is honoured and treated with respect and enjoyed. Yeah. It all massively appeals to me. Sumo, I got really into sumo. Oh, sorry, yeah, Shinto. So it's 8 million gods, and they have deities, and the deities are in all animals, rivers, mountains, humans. Yeah, gosh, I wrote a lot. So in terms of the book, and I think what all these books are about, there's an aspect about work life where work life is about diligence and discipline and commitment and having care and pride in our work, and by doing that we can get some enjoyment from work, but also in our free time. I think care and diligence and respect, it's huge, isn't it? Appreciation of beauty, appreciation of function and form. There's a humility and lack of ostentation in these objects, etc. And there was one quote I particularly loved, so I wrote it down. Accept what you are given and rise to the situation. So instead of, you know, giving someone the side eye because they've got more money than you or a bigger home than you, etc., etc., instead of chasing someone else's stuff, accept what you have and rise to it and make the most of it. So yeah, it was a kind of an odd moment, having read the first couple of pages, and I was thinking, yeah, but it's Japan, and then suddenly realising there's so much of that culture, the traditional culture, that I really love and respect and actually kind of in some ways aspire to. There was an advert on telly, I found it because I wanted to talk about this. I found it, bookmarked it on my old computer, and now I've lost it. I'll find it again because I'd like to, if I can. Oh, looking at the time, I'd like, if I can, to put a link to it under this video. There was an advert a few years ago for a telephone. I can't remember which make, presumably it's a Japanese make. But never mind, the ad, I loved it, and I know some of you are going to know exactly what I'm talking about even before I've mentioned it. So I re-watched it. I found it and re-watched it the other day, and I thought, yeah, it's exactly as gorgeous as I remember. I can't remember the point they were trying to make about the phone though. It doesn't matter. The advert is set in a forest, so we're into that Shirin-yoku, the forest bathing. And it's a sort of, okay, any of you with kids will know, or grandkids will have played probably with Marble Run. You know, when you've got a marble and you set it off up here and it goes down, 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 then whizzes down. So it's like a marble run that they've built, except it's not for a marble, it's for a big wooden ball. So it's tuning into that thing of that beautiful carpentry and joinery that is, you know, in traditional Japanese cultures just done sublimely. So we've got this marble run that's been created in the forest, but it's on a huge scale. It's coming down the hillside, mountainside. Sometimes the gradient is a bit steeper, and then sometimes it slopes off a bit, and they let the marble go, this wooden ball, they let it go at the top. What we don't realise you realise it straight away as soon as it starts, but what isn't necessarily apparent just by looking at an image of it is that this marble run has been created as a giant xylophone through the forest. So as the ball comes down, as it hits each bit of the marble run, it sounds a note. It's just wood, but it sounds a note like a xylophone. And so it creates a piece of music as it winds its way down through the forest. It's sublime, it's gorgeous. I'm so glad I picked that book up, and I'm so glad it made me remember that ad and that I could find it online. I'm going to go and find it again now so I can tag it on here. It's so well worth a look. I seem to remember, I think the camera case was wooden. I think that's what the tie-in was, but who cares? Not camera, phone, who cares? It's a gorgeous, gorgeous thing. So that's completely random, I know, but yeah, if you see, that's the one that I read. Really enjoyed it, thought-provoking. It talks about, there's 5 pillars of Ikigai: starting small, releasing yourself, harmony and sustainability, the joy of little things. You can see now why this really appeals to me. And being in the here and now. Lovely, 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 lovely. So on that, let's slot you back in there. On that very happy, positive, yay note, I'm going to love you and leave you. There's always something else. There's always something else to talk about. Yes, I could talk for England. I could talk for Europe, I could talk for the universe, but I shan't anymore today. I'll see you all soon. Until then, please look after yourselves. Cheerio.